Welcome back to the deep dive. We're continuing our journey through the MPP, the Manual of Patent Examining Procedure, still in Chapter 1400, Correction of Patents.
That's right. And today we're zooming in on a really specific but strategically vital section. MPP Section 1442. It's all about special status for reissue applications.
Right. So our mission really is to unpack what that special status actually means in practice. How does the USPTO handle these reissue applications priority-wise? Especially when things get complicated, like with court cases or PTAB challenges happening at the same time.
Exactly. Understanding this can make a huge difference if you're trying to correct a patent while it's under fire. Oh, and before we dive in, a quick thank you is definitely in order for Mike Shepard.
Oh, absolutely. Mike's the creative director behind this whole audio series structure. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. And the usual disclaimer applies to you, right? This is AI-assisted summary, informational, educational.
Definitely not legal advice. Always talk to a qualified practitioner for that. Okay, so let's start with the basics. MPPP Section 1442. What's the absolute baseline rule for all reissue applications?
The baseline is simple but powerful. Every single reissue application automatically gets special status.
Okay, special status. What does that translate to, like in the examiner's inbox?
It means they jump the queue. These applications are taken up for examination ahead of most other types of applications waiting their turn. It's a mandate for the office to act promptly.
So just by filing for reissue, you get prioritized? That seems like a pretty big perk if you found an error you need to fix fast. But there was something surprising in the material about this. There's something about applicant replies.
Yes, that's a really key detail. This special status, this priority treatment, it continues even if the applicant is a bit slow in responding to an office action.
Wait, really? Usually if you miss a deadline or drag your feet, you lose your place, or worse. Why the leniency here?
Well, think about why a reissue exists. It's to correct a potentially defective patent that's already out there, one that might be wholly or partly inoperative or invalid, as the MPP puts it.
Meaning the public doesn't have clarity on what the patent actually covers right now.
Precisely. The public interest in getting that patent right, in clarifying its scope, is huge. And the patent clock is ticking, right? So the system prioritizes getting the correction done, fixing the public record over, penalizing the applicant for maybe taking an extra week or two to respond. They want to keep the momentum going.
Okay, that rationale makes a lot of sense. It's not just about the applicant. It's about the integrity and clarity of the patent system itself. So automatic priority is step one. But it gets even more urgent sometimes, doesn't it? Like when they're outside fights.
It absolutely does. That's where we shift from just special status to what you could call escalated priority. If that reissue application is tangled up with external legal battles.
Like court cases.
Exactly. Active litigation in federal court or, and this is crucial, proceedings before the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, the PTAB.
Which specific PTAB proceedings trigger this super priority?
The MPP lists the main ones: inter partes review or IPR, post-grant review, PGR, derivation proceedings, and also covered business method review, CBM, though that's less common now. If any of those are running concurrently with the reissue,
then the reissue gets pushed even further up the list.
to the very top, essentially. The PTO treats it like a procedural hot potato.
So let's play that out. My patent's in reissue, chugging along, and boom, a competitor files an IPR against it. What does the examiner have to do next? They can't just ignore the IPR, right?
No, they absolutely cannot. The procedure is clear. The examiner must check the PTAB's records, usually their electronic docketing system, before taking any further action on the reissue.
Why that specific check first?
Well, two main reasons. First, has the PTAB already ruled on something that affects the reissue? But more often, it's the second reason. Has the PTAB itself already decided to suspend or stay the reissue proceeding? The PTAB often does that to avoid conflicting decisions.
Ah, okay. So the examiner needs to know if the PTAB has already put the brakes on the reissue. Which brings us to the next point.
Exactly.
Suspension is kind of the default move here, isn't it?
It often is, yes. If there's significant overlap between the issues in the reissue and the issues in the litigation or the PTAB proceeding, the USPTO will typically suspend action on the reissue.
Just to avoid, like, two different parts of the government working on the same problem at the same time.
Exactly. It's about efficiency and avoiding duplication of effort.
Yeah.
Why have an examiner burn hours on validity if the PTAB or a court is already doing a deep dive on the very same questions?
Makes sense. But it's not always suspended, right?
Yeah.
The MTP mentioned exceptions. When might the reissue examination keep going despite the court case or PTAB action?
Right. There are three key situations where the office might decide to continue. First, pretty straightforward. if the external fight is over, the litigation has settled or ended, or the PT proceeding is finished.
Okay, that's logical. What else?
Second, if the issues don't really overlap significantly, maybe the reissue is about correcting, say, claim dependencies or fixing a typo, while the IPR is challenging validity based on prior art for totally different claims. If they're looking at different things, examination might continue.
And the third exception. That one seemed to put the ball back in the applicant's court.
It does. The third way examination can proceed is if the applicant specifically requests it. They basically say, yes, I know there's litigation, but please keep examining my reissue application.
Okay, that sounds like a strategic choice. But the MPP suggested there's some pretty tough conditions if you make that request.
Oh, yeah. If you ask the PTO to keep going while there's this external conflict, they might agree, but they put you on a very short leash.
How short? What kind of timeline are we talking about?
We're talking a tight constraint. Usually, you get just a 2-month period to respond to any office action. 2 months.
Wow. And the really tough part.
The really tough part. Standard extensions of time, the ones you can usually buy under Rule 1.136, are not permitted.
Not permitted at all. That's pretty harsh. In regular prosecution, getting an extra month or two is almost routine. Why clamp down so hard here?
Because the situation is already complex and high stakes.
Yeah.
You've got an active patent, its validity is being questioned in court or at the PTB, and you're trying to change it and reissue. The USPTO doesn't want that uncertainty dragging on forever. They want resolution.
So basically no extensions unless. Is there any way at all?
Only if you can show really clear, compelling justification. It's an extremely high bar. They're signaling, if you force us to examine this now, you better be ready to respond now.
That really forces a strategic calculation, doesn't it? You might want the quick fix from reissue, but you risk having to make a rushed response under that tight deadline. Maybe not your best argument.
It's absolutely a risk-reward scenario. Maybe getting those corrected claims allowed quickly before a big court date is worth the pressure. Or maybe it's better to let the reissue be suspended and focus on the litigation first. Big decision for the patent owner.
That need for speed and clarity ties right into the next major point. The applicant's duty to keep the USPTO in the loop.
Yes, the mandatory duty to inform. This is fundamental. You, the applicant or patent owner, must tell the office about any related litigation, any re-examination, or any PTAB proceeding involving the patent being reissued.
That feels like, well, strategically awkward maybe. You have to proactively hand the examiner the arguments and evidence being used against you in court.
You do. It might feel awkward, but it's crucial for the examination process. The examiner needs that information. Why? Because those litigation documents or court rulings or PTA papers might contain information that's material to the patentability of the claims in the reissue.
Like if a judge has already interpreted a claim term in a certain way, or maybe even found a claim invalid.
Exactly. The examiner needs to see that stuff. A court's claim construction, prior art cited in the litigation, expert testimony, it could all directly impact whether the claims in the reissue are actually allowable. The examiner isn't strictly bound by a court decision, but they absolutely have to consider the evidence.
And what if the applicant forgets or just doesn't submit those court documents?
The examiner isn't powerless. If they suspect something's going on externally and they don't have the documents, the MPP allows them to specifically ask the applicant for details or copies of relevant papers. The duty is ongoing.
Okay, got it. Duty to inform is serious business.
Now let's shift to the final point, which I found pretty interesting, the limits on what courts can do here.
Well, yes, the limits of the court's power regarding compelling reissue. This has a bit of history.
What used to happen?
Well, in the past, you had situations where a patent was being litigated, maybe it looked clearly defective on some point, and the judge would basically try to order the patent owner to go file a reissue application at the USPTO to fix it. Huh. A judge telling someone they must file something with the patent office. That feels like maybe crossing a line between branches of government. Judicial ordering administrative action.
That was precisely the tension. You can see the judge's logic. This patent needs fixing. Let's order them to fix it. But the Federal Circuit stepped in and put a stop to that.
And what was the definitive ruling?
The key takeaway, the big aha moment here, is that the Federal Circuit ruled definitively. Courts cannot compel a patentee to file for reissue.
Cannot. Full stop.
Well,
why is that distinction so important? Why keep it voluntary?
Because filing for reissue isn't just a simple correction sometimes. It's a voluntary act by the patent owner that can have major consequences. You might have to surrender claim scope. You open the patent up to new examination on potentially all grounds. It's a strategic decision with potential downsides.
So forcing someone into that process could inadvertently harm their overall patent rights or litigation strategy.
Exactly. That decision, whether or not to potentially give up rights or face new challenges in reissue, has to remain solely with the patent owner, the patentee, or the assignee. The court can't force their hand on that administrative pathway. The patent owner controls that decision.
That's a really important clarification of power. The system incentivizes using reissue with priority, but it doesn't let courts mandate it.
Right. You control the choice to enter the administrative correction process.
Okay, this has been super illuminating on MPP Section 1442. Let's quickly recap the highlights. We started with the baseline. All reissues get automatic special status, priority handling.
And that priority sticks even if the applicant's reply is a bit delayed, because public clarity on the patent is paramount.
Then we saw how external conflicts, litigation, IPRs, PGRs kick that up to escalated priority. The examiner has to check PTAB records first.
Which often leads to suspension of the reissue to avoid duplicate work, unless one of those exceptions applies, like the fight ending, no issue overlap, or the applicant specifically asking to proceed.
And facing those super strict 2-month, no extension deadlines if they do ask to proceed.
Then the absolute necessity of the duty to inform the USPTO about all those external proceedings, giving the examiner the full picture.
And finally, that crucial Federal Circuit ruling. Courts can't force you to file reissue. It's a patent owner's voluntary strategic call.
When you put all those pieces together, the built-in speed, the strict rules during conflict, the applicant's control over initiating, you really see how the system is structured. It creates quite an interesting set of incentives.
Which leads to our final thought for you, the listener. Considering that reissue gets priority right away, and that you control whether to file it, how does this MPP Section 1442 framework encourage patent owners to be proactive? Does it push you to use the USPTO's administrative fix before a challenger forces your hand in court, potentially catching flaws early on your own terms?
Definitely something to mull over in your own patent strategy. And just our standard reminder, this deep dive used AI tools for summarizing the MPP. It's for education and information only.
Not legal advice. Always consult the official MPEP, or better yet, a registered patent practitioner for specific guidance.
Absolutely.
Great discussion. Until next time, keep digging into those details.